When I was a teenager, I read a short story about a woman with a young family who was enraptured with the beauty and joy of her idyllic life. Her adorable, energetic children, the rewarding pace of her life, the comforting presence of her husband behind her in the kitchen as she chops carrots on the counter. The doorbell rings. Her little boy runs through the kitchen as she ushers in a mysterious salesman and invites him to sit down at the table. He's peddling a sparkling new contraption, a wish granter. He's willing to offer a free trial. The little boy interrupts to hand his mother a flower he picked for her, planting a kiss on her cheek. "Oh," she exclaims, clutching her heart, realizing suddenly that life won't remain this precious forever. "Oh, how I wish we could stay this way always." And because of the salesman's free trial, her wish is granted. I put down the book at this point. Remember, I was 19 and declared, with the disdain that only teenagers can generate, "What a stupid story." I pick up the book again, and in a very artful way, the author takes me through the protagonist's perfect moment again and again. The afternoon sun streaming through the curtains, chopping carrots, her husband's hand on her shoulder, the boy, the flower, the kiss, the exclamation, commingled delight and sorrow. Then, the veil of her experience is lifted, and as with all fairy tale gifts, the steep price of the salesman's free trial is revealed. The young mother remains in her perfect moment, but her family continues to grow up around her. She is unable to interact with them in any meaningful way, but she remains blithely unaware. The afternoon sun streams through the curtains. She smiles to herself, chops carrots, leans down to receive the flower and the kiss, while her aging family moves around the kitchen, going on with their lives without her. At this point, my 19-year-old self looked up, appalled. The mother in the story misses out on her entire life, on relationships with her family, on reality. And she didn't even have a choice. She was tricked. I imagined my own mother floating airily through the kitchen in an endless daze, reliving some forgotten, perfect memory from my childhood, right next to me, but completely inaccessible. Tragic. When I think about the story now that I am a mother myself, it hits differently, but deeply. First of all, let's get one thing straight. I survived a pandemic with 2 young children, so I'm not nearly as at risk for this kind of 1950s Donna Reed sentimentality. I do imagine that poor mother in her kitchen, alone, and think, she's completely cut off. She can't really love her family because she doesn't know them. After coming through the pandemic, I too cling tightly to the brief moments of family bliss. enjoying them more fully, hopefully, because of how hard it was before. But I try not to cling too tight, because life needs to breathe. My family got through a really hard time, and we grew stronger for it, but only because we went through it together. I realize that without loss, without challenge, without the daily struggle, growth is impossible. Relationship is impossible. Maybe love is letting go of beautiful moments one by one, while at the same time maintaining faith that new beautiful moments will follow. In order to live fully, we have to be present in the moment, yes, but we also have to be willing to let go of each beautiful moment as it comes. This takes an enormous amount of faith, a faith that requires cultivating, because when we hold on too tight, when we try to freeze the moment, like the mother in the story, the life drains out of it. Faith is loving enough to let go, while remaining secure in the knowledge that letting go clears up space for new love to grow. Earlier this morning, we read one of Judaism's most disturbing passages, the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. We read it every year on Rosh Hashana, and every year it is just as disturbing as it was the year before. God demands the impossible, commanding Abraham, "Take your son, your dear one, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the heights that I will point out to you." What kind of God would demand this? We imagine ourselves Isaac, our grim-faced parent, looming over us, knife in hand. Or we imagine ourselves Abraham, gazing down at our beloved's fragile body, steeling ourselves, arm raised. This blood-curdling episode is meant to teach us faith, that love for our God must transcend even love for the precious few mortals we hold close. It's a chilling sort of faith, and it's counterintuitive, isn't it? Surely, God must want our faith in the divine to manifest through our love and care of each other. We are, each of us, made in God's image, after all. Here comes the angel to stay Abraham's hand, to stop the abomination of child sacrifice, to affirm that we are not a people who throw our children into the maw of an insatiable, devouring God. The ram appears to take Isaac's place as sacrifice. But it's not a happy ending. We know the price that Abraham had to pay, the price Isaac had to pay, that Sarah, left out of the narrative, had to pay. The trust lost, their relationship torn asunder. They never interact again. The story moves on. Abraham goes off to Beersheba. Sarah dies. The family servant is sent off to get Isaac a wife. What are we to learn from this story? How can we apply it to our lives? What if we step back from the text, zoom out, take a bird's eye view? What if we view this story not as another appalling article on the front page, but like a myth or a dream? Imagine you wake up with a gasp in the middle of the night, your heart pounding, your mouth dry, flashes of your nightmare still gripping you, a voice of command, your hand on a knife, your precious one bound before you on an altar of wood, the compulsion in your arm to swing the knife down, the terror on your beloved's face. Let's imagine that every character in the story represents an aspect of our own personality. That every character reflects a different faction of the war that wages within our souls daily. Remember the movie Being John Malkovich? There's an eerie, dreamlike sequence where John Malkovich plays every character. He stumbles through copies of himself everywhere. He's every face in the crowd, every guest in the restaurant, the pianist at the piano. Imagine that you are playing every character in the story of the Akedah. You are the voice of God, demanding a terrible sacrifice. You are Abraham with knife in hand. You are Isaac, bound on the altar. Viewing the story in this immersive way brings rise to more questions. First, is there a God voice inside of me? Can I identify it, the implacable, unforgiving, demanding, all-knowing part of myself that sees truth? Second, what is my God voice demanding right now? What terrible truth am I holding that only my God self can see? Next, where is my Isaac self? It is a beloved, young part of me, but it no longer serves who I am. I need to lay this part of me down on the altar and give myself up to what comes next. We all have bits of ourselves that we cling to, that we wish we could drag forward into the current version of ourselves, that we need to let go of in order to grow into our next incarnation. Growing up, growing older, means sacrificing a little bit of who we were so we can grow into who we are and who we're meant to be tomorrow. Finally, where is the Abraham self? The part that gets to make the choice. The God self knows what needs doing. The Isaac self is the part we need to leave behind. The Abraham self is burdened with the responsibility of action. Can I wield the knife? Can I cut my chest open to make room for my heart to grow? We imagine, many of us, that growth is additive, that growth simply builds upon previous growth, like stacking blocks. Here I place the toddlerhood block on top of the infancy one, and the childhood block on top of the toddlerhood one. Adolescence on top of childhood, young adulthood on top of that. Growth is not additive. Growth is destructive and painful. It's your child whimpering in the night, as her bones and muscles stretch too fast to bear. Growth is a forest fire, burning trees crumbling into ash, pulling down the green canopy to let sun stream in, so new creatures can lay their eggs into what smolders and the saplings can grow. If the binding of Isaac is not literally about a God commanding a father to sacrifice his son, and is instead a symbolic description of individual growth, then Abraham's faith becomes more understandable. The God self is only demanding that the Abraham self sacrifices what needs to be sacrificed in order for the greater self to grow. It's a natural process. The Abraham self is rewarded for his almost sacrifice, even though the angel intervenes. The Isaac self is saved. The ram goes up in flames instead, representing the scrabbling, stuck parts of ourselves. Isaac is spared, yes, but with Abraham's decision comes loss, the loss of the relationship between the Abraham self and the Isaac self. This relationship now metamorphosizes into something different. The character trait that used to dominate our personality in a way that no longer serves us shifts just enough that our Isaac self can successfully integrate into the whole. Faith is loving ourselves enough to let go of what no longer serves us, while remaining secure in the knowledge that letting go clears up space for new growth. If we hear the story of the Akedah and reject it as the command of a loveless, jealous God, and Abraham's compliance as the faith of a fool, we're failing to see the point. Our tradition offers us this difficult episode to force us to grapple intentionally with faith and love and loss in our own lives. In doing so, we learn a universal truth. There is no growth without loss. The question is not, would I sacrifice my child for God? The question is, what do I need to sacrifice in order to prove my faith in a future that is out of my control? What in my life requires sacrifice so that I can move forward into my future unshackled? This afternoon, we will gather by the sea. We will sing, we will pray, we will symbolically cast our sins away. In 10 days, on Yom Kippur, we will stand together and pray the Vidui Rabbah, the long confessional. We will beat our breasts and ask for forgiveness as we enumerate sin after sin in an effort to purge those misdeeds from our heart, to wipe clean the slate for the coming year. This is hard work, praying again for another year, praying that this year we will not make the same mistakes. This is hard enough. What's harder still is casting away a part of ourselves that we love. Not a sin, but an attribute, a quality that could be value neutral, one that used to serve us, but now holds us back, an aspect of ourselves that cannot successfully make the trip from adolescence to early adulthood, or middle adulthood to late adulthood. This is the lesson of the Akedah. Faith is loving ourselves enough to let go of what no longer serves us, while remaining secure in the knowledge that letting go clears up space for new growth. The Yomim Noraim, the days of awe, are a time of change, a time of letting go, of reflection, repentance, and introspection, a time of taking ourselves apart and putting ourselves back together stronger. Have faith. We can do this. Together, we can grow into whatever comes next. I look forward to seeing you for Tashlich at the beach at 4 p.m. today. Shana Tova Umetuka.